Okay, so my Christmas Day, and we can maybe vote on whether these things are good or bad ideas. We still do stockings. Anyone still does stockings? Fill your stockings on Christmas morning. Does anyone do them on the fireplace? Fireplace stockings. Does anyone do them on your bedroom door? So we do stockings on the bedroom door, and there aren't any young people who understand what I'm saying about Santa who are going to be hurt by what I'm going to say. Let me just check. Are we all good? We're good with Santa? Great. So Santa would come and fill, would come and fill the stockings every Christmas, which was great when we were kids, but of course when you grow up, you tend to go to bed later than your parents. So you'd get a knock on the door that said, "Don't open the door, Santa is filling your stockings. Don't come out." And my mum, bless her, fills our stockings now, even as grown-ups, but she goes to bed way earlier than the rest of us. We do one present on Christmas Eve. Anyone like that idea? Think that's bad? Okay. Oh, yeah, come on. You got to get ready for opening more presents. We do all our presents before lunch. Everyone has their own piles that you put into their names. You open all your presents. And then you do Christmas dinner, and then sort of just figure out the evening, play games, watch TV. So why am I talking about Christmas? Well, I don't know where you are on the scale of how much you plan your Christmas. Right? How much do you decide goes into the day? How much of the day are you planning? But the main characters in this Bible passage that we've just read from Mark are the Pharisees. And the Pharisees are a religious group of Jewish people living at the time of Jesus. And they, I think, are the ultimate Christmas planners. They have everything down to a T. They have all of these traditions that if you don't keep them exactly how they're supposed to be kept, it's not Christmas. Right? And they spend all the time worrying about, we've got to soak the fruit in November for the Christmas cake, and we've got to get all the specific crackers, and we've got to get the slow gin mince pies. They spend all of the energy getting all the traditions right that they don't enjoy Christmas. Does anyone relate to that at all? And what I think Jesus is saying here is you've got to get to the heart. And what he identifies with the Pharisees, and for us, if we want to be followers of Jesus, is two problems, right? So the first part of our passage, 1 to 12, 1 to 13, deals with this first problem, and the second half, 14 to the end, deals with what I think the second problem. But they're both to do with the heart, and I've got them on the board there. Lovely. For those of you who don't know, I'm part of our schools team. I go into schools, so this might be a bit youth workery, but, bear with me. So the first one, Jesus says, I think, is tradition should focus your heart, not distract your heart. The things that you do for Christmas should make it feel Christmassy. It shouldn't be about doing those things properly. And the second one, which is arguably the bigger one, is you need a new heart. And so if we're looking through the Gospel of Mark, as we have been the last few weeks, looking at what it means to be a disciple of Jesus, what it means to follow him, then we need to deal with these two problems. So let's start with number one. Let's go to the next slide. Bosh. Okay, so Jesus' criticism in verse 6 and 7, he quotes the prophet Isaiah and says, "Your hearts are far from me. You worship in vain." The Pharisees seem to be holy. They have all the right processes, the right traditions, the right rules that show everyone else how devoted they are to God. But in doing so, they've become more focused on the way they worship than the person they are worshiping. And what I want to say right off the bat is, it's easy to say, we're nothing like the Pharisees because we don't feel traditional. In St. James, we don't feel like we're a traditional church. We're free. We've got all the freedoms to worship how we want. But I want to just gently remind us, and maybe use the Christmas analogy, that we do have traditions, that we like to worship in a certain way. We like doing this. We like music. We like the keyboard. We like the guitar. And we have our traditions. I wonder, as you talk through your ideal Christmas day, was there anything that you were like, oh yeah, we do that every year, that you didn't maybe realize was a Christmas tradition? Maybe you said, oh yeah, we watch whatever, and this goes, well, we have to watch Doctor Who. Or, we eat whatever, but obviously it's going to be turkey. We grow up with these traditions that we're not used to, and all Jesus is doing is reminding us that we get used to a certain way of life, a certain way of worshiping, and we need to put our eyes onto, are we focusing on the way we worship or the person we are worshiping? And it's fine to like a style, right? I've worked with lots of different young people, and as I found working with young people with sort of additional educational needs, is there are some things, some ways of worshiping that just don't work, right? There's some ways where you say to a child, sit still for an hour and I'm going to talk at you. That's not going to work. And so it's fine to have a preference or to have ways of worship that focus you more, but Jesus reminds us we're always in danger of letting that become the thing. I wonder if you've ever gone away from church. I've done this. If you've gone away from church and gone, the worship was so good today. Wasn't the worship amazing? Or maybe you said, the worship wasn't that good today. It's probably that worship leader I don't like. And if you said that, for those of you who don't know, Lucia, who's leading worship today, is my wife. So, I hope you're all going to go away and say it's good. But it's not about that. It's not actually about that. It's great that we have this professionalism, this slick band, that everything looks good and it's cool, and we've got these trendy graphics that Ollie has made for us. But sometimes that can become a hindrance for us, can't it? We allow the worship leader to do all the work for us, and we sort of just turn up and sing the songs. And tradition, I think what Jesus is trying to get at in this passage is, it's a focus, right? It's a tool. It's a vessel, it's a lens, it's a pathway. It's what gets my heart to God's heart. And if I'm going on that journey and I get stuck in the instrument of worship, then I'm not getting to the whole reason I'm doing this in the first place. If I put all this effort into Christmas and I get cross and I get sad, then I put all this effort to stick me right here in the middle where I didn't want to be. I think if we're going to grow in love, right, we're looking at the way that discipleship of Jesus shapes our life, and two of the ways we're talking about that is growing and loving. I think if we're going to grow in love, we need to have a heart that is open to worship God through whatever is available to us, music or something else. I've personally had the privilege of growing up in the Anglican Church. We're Anglicans, in case you didn't know, the Church of England. It's great. I love it. But when I grew up, I also went to Catholic school, so I attended Catholic Mass. When Lucia and I started dating, she went to Pentecostal church, and I was there for 5 or 6 years. I've been to Orthodox. I've been to Salvation Army. I worshipped at Vineyard. I worked in a cathedral. That was quite an interesting year. And the conclusion I've come to, having seen a lot of Christianity, is that I just really love God. And whatever way I can worship him, I'm going to join in. Right? Don't let the style put me off. Don't let the hymns. Don't let we sit down, then we stand up. Isn't that boring? I just want to come into church to worship God. I want my heart to connect with the heart of Jesus. And I don't really mind whatever way you're presenting me to do that. I'm all in. I want to join in with whatever you've put in front of me, whatever tradition, whatever prayer, whatever liturgy, because all I want is to connect my heart to God's heart. And the longer I've been in church, I'm only 25, but I've been in church 25 years. The longer I've been in church, the more I need something to focus me, right? Because sometimes my heart can't focus without that channel to get to God's heart. I don't know if you've ever experienced a grief in your life, but what do you say? What do you say to God? What words are there? Or maybe there's been a joy in your life. You've got a new baby niece or nephew, or what do you say to God? And the wonderful thing about tradition and about prayer is that there's already a prayer for that. We're the Church of England. We've got a prayer for everything. We've got a prayer for staying in a caravan. We've got a prayer for literally, we've just got a prayer for everything. And there's some pressure we put ourselves on in our tradition, this free, wavy, charismatic tradition. We put this pressure on that I've got to come up with the good prayer. I've got to say directly to God what I want to say. But I just want to connect with God. And sometimes I don't know what it is I want to say. So I want there to be a prayer for me that I can just say, yeah, amen. I want somebody else to pray for me. It's fun to be spontaneous, but if you're spontaneous on Christmas Day, there's a high chance you're not going to have a good time. So maybe this is a message to the students specifically. But if you sort of just go, it'll work itself out, sometimes it will. A lot of times it's not going to. It's good to have structure in our worship. So, to sum up, Jesus' first warning is don't let tradition become the thing. Don't let the music, the songs, become a distraction. Let them be a focus. My mum is a vicar, and she has a church group, and she teaches guitars. And she's in a sort of local parish, so there's lots of sort of people from the local estate and lots of pensioners. And in this guitar club, they've got 11 people, all with like these nylon guitars. And she teaches them strum 1, which is dung, dugga, dugga, dung. And she teaches them strum 2, which is dugga, dung, dugga, dung. And there are 11 like pensioners playing these nylon guitars. And it's some of the most beautiful worship, right? Because it's people who want to connect with God. It doesn't have to be all this. This is great. But if we had nothing, right? If the church disappeared overnight and it was just you, like sat on your own with God, like that would be enough. Jesus is enough. It doesn't have to be slick. It can be really clunky. But if our heart focuses on God, then that is the true worship he is looking for. So if tradition is stopping your heart from getting close to God, don't worship in vain. Don't go through the motions. Don't hold on to human traditions, as Jesus says, just because you like them. But in all places, at all times, in whatever means, in whichever words, pray, worship, give thanks to God, give him your worship. So, to do that, we've got to deal with the second problem. Let's go to the next slide. The second problem that Jesus talks about is also about the heart. You need a new one. All of us need a new heart. Oh, there, yeah, brilliant. So Jesus does some clever wordplay here. He says, it's not what goes into a person that defiles them, it's what comes out. And this is a little parable that he talks about. And if you're a Jewish person living at the time, which Jesus was, you'd be observing a number of food laws. There are a number of things you can't eat and can eat, and the things that you can eat. This is all the kosher food laws. And remember, Jesus followed these laws his whole life, and his disciples followed these laws his whole life, even after his resurrection. So these are important laws. And when Jesus says they're all clean, what he's not saying, I don't think, is that the laws are redundant, but that it's not what you're eating that's going to change you. And the big thing is because what you're eating goes into your stomach and not your heart. Just a little bit of wordplay, a little bit of Jesus wordplay. The heart is the center of the issue. When you read Jesus' teaching, especially in the Gospel of Matthew, in the Sermon on the Mount, he says, you can look great on the outside. You can not murder anyone. Fantastic. But there is a hate that bubbles within you that when you get triggered, comes out against the people that you love. Right? You may not be cheating on your spouse, but there is a desire within you for something more or for someone else that you feel like you're missing on something. And Jesus says that evil is not external. You can't just put on a good face and come to church. There's something that's going on in your heart. And that's what God looks at, right? God doesn't look at the outside. We do. We look at the outside. We compare ourselves to other people. But the mystery is God knows our hearts, I would argue, better than we do, right? There's something that happens as we grow up, as we encounter people that we love and they get to know our hearts, that we learn why certain things make us really angry or why certain things just get us down. We learn those things through therapy, but God knows us even better. He knows our innermost thoughts. And that should free us to say that God already knows whatever it is you don't want to tell him. And God knows the innermost thoughts of the other person, right? The person who's standing up to do a preach. God knows what is going on in that person's heart. God knows what's going on in all of our hearts. He knows our past, our present, our future. And so no matter how good someone looks on social media, or, let's be honest, in real life, we talk about the sort of person that you build up in social media, the person that we build up to put a face on to come to church. God knows what is going on in the inside. And we know why we're here, right? It's problem one, to worship Jesus. So why are we bringing ourselves to church having to say, oh, yeah, everything's fine. I'm good. Why else are we coming to church? Jesus didn't come for the healthy, he came for the sick. Why else are you here? Jesus tells a parable about a tax collector and a Pharisee. The Pharisee goes up to the center of the worship and says, God, I thank you that you've forgiven me, and I thank you that I'm not as sinful as everyone else. And the tax collector stands at the back of the room. He can't even look up. And he beats his chest. And he says, God, have mercy on me. He's not doing it for anyone else. He knows he's broken. And he's able to come into the house of God and meet with God and bring his heart to God.
So we need a change of heart. We need something on the inside to change the outside, right? Because if you change the outside, you're not actually changing the inside. But if you change the inside, that will have outward effects, right? So if you want to change your behaviors, the thing you actually need to address is your heart. This is what Jesus, I think, is saying to us. When I was a youth worker in my old job, in my old church, we had a young person come to our lock-in. Those of you who don't know, lock-in is the wildest thing that Lydia knows, she was there. This is the wildest thing that youth workers do. We bring a whole bunch of young people into the church with our youth leaders. We stay up all night. We play games. We eat pizzas at 2 a.m. I don't know who made up that idea, but it's wild. Anyway, so on the day of, I'm in school, in our school club. This isn't my old job, but I'm in school, and a young person says, oh, actually, no, like, let's be honest. There were like 8 or 9 people who signed up on the day. It was an administrative nightmare. Anyway, the young person said to me, oh, I really want to come to the lock-in. I was like, great. They're like, but can we go outside? And I'm like, well, no, like, you can't just wander into the street at 2 a.m. They're like, oh, no, like, we smoke, so we need to take smoke breaks. And I'm like, yeah. Why would the barrier for coming into church be that you need to look a certain way? I had pushback on that, right? Because you come into church, you should look good. Like, what gospel are you reading? You come into church because you're broken. You come into church because you need Jesus. And then, not that night, but another night with that young person, another youth group, that person became a Christian. 3 weeks later, that young person comes up to me and says, oh, Ethan, I think I might quit smoking. Oh, really? Tell me about that. Well, I think because I'm a Christian now, I think I could actually do it. It's not hard. If we make the barrier for becoming a faithful disciple of Jesus good behavior, then nothing's ever going to change. You need to address the heart. And when you address the heart, the transformation will follow. That's what it means to be a disciple of Jesus. To have your heart go after Jesus' heart. Because then suddenly you're filled with a love, and you want to love yourself better. You want to brush your teeth. You want to go have a shower. You want to cook yourself a nice dinner. Because the love of God dwells in you. If we spend all our energy dealing with the symptoms of the problem and not the disease, we will be very tired and very sad and feel like God isn't doing anything. We need to address the disease, and the disease is the human heart. We need a heart transplant. So how do we do that? Well, you can't do it with food because food goes into the stomach. So, youth worker, rhetorical question, what substance can humans have that goes into their heart that isn't food, but what goes into a human heart? The blood. Blood goes in the heart. So what we don't need is food. What we need is blood. When we receive the blood and the body of Jesus, when we take communion, we have a prayer for it. Of course we do. We have prayers for everything. And this prayer says, our hands were unclean, our hearts were unprepared. We were not fit to eat the crumbs from under your table. But you, Lord, are the God of our salvation. You share your bread with sinners. So cleanse us and feed us with the precious body and blood of your Son, that he may live in us and we in him. It's no mystery that Jesus offers us his blood, because what needs to change is our heart. The things that burn away inside you, that bubble up when you get angry, the secret thoughts, the things you're ashamed of, are soothed and healed and restored by the blood of Jesus. When we open our hearts to him, when we give Jesus our brokenness, our innermost thoughts, we offer to die. You cut out your heart, you get rid of your heart, you die. And through dying to ourselves, we find life in Jesus eternal. Because when we give him our old, dusty, broken, cracky hearts, he gives us a beautiful, wonderful, divine heart. Hundreds of years before Jesus was born, the prophet Ezekiel said this, I will sprinkle clean water on you, and you will be clean. I will cleanse you from all your impurities, from all your idols. I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit in you. I will remove from you your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. I will put my spirit in you and move you to follow my decrees and be careful to keep my laws. Only when we receive a new heart from Jesus can we follow his decrees and his laws. Only when that inward transformation happens right at the heart of who we are we able to be transformed into the image of Jesus. I'm going to invite the band up. They're going to come into land. So these are the two problems that need to be addressed. The first one is that tradition can often get in the way of our hearts connecting with God's heart. And I want to reiterate, because I think I was a bit harsh on our tradition, that I love worship and I love singing. My friend in Chester is a Christian, and he grew up in Catholic school as well, and he did not have a good time and has a lot of hurt. And there are traditions for him that draw him away from God, that there's pain. And for those of us that have been in churches or Christian communities that have hurt us, there are traditions that will draw us away from God. So what I'm not saying is it's wrong to like this style of worship, but let it draw you into God, not into itself. And the second one is, for all of us, we need a new heart. Whatever it is that your heart uses to focus on God, use it. Whether it's singing, whether it's dancing, whether it's nature, whatever it is that lets your heart draw close to God, use it. For me, one of the things is films. We're going to watch a little film clip as I sum up here. I am going to spoil this film, but it makes the point I want to make a lot clearer. So we have a group in the schools group that here at St. James we run in St. Hilda's called LCB, Lights, Camera, Bible. It's a group run by John McCready, for those of you who used to worship here, who've been around long enough. John pitched this group as like Bible meets Jesus. Obviously. Films meet Bible meets Jesus. And you watch a film clip and you talk about God. It's a great group. We've seen a lot of young people. We actually had a young person become a Christian for the first time in that group this term. Isn't that amazing? Anyway, so when he pitched this group, I said, John, we have to do Moana. Anyone see Moana? Great, this is going to make this next part really easy for me. It is unironically, ask Lucy, it is unironically my favorite film. I'm not joking. Not my favorite musical, not my favorite Disney film. It is the best film. For this reason, it is the most Christian film you're ever going to watch. It is so Christian. It is literally the gospel of Jesus. So I'll spoil the plot. If you haven't seen it, do go away and watch it. She's spending the whole film trying to restore the heart. She's restoring the heart of a woman called Te Fiti. And when she gets there, spoilers, when she gets there, she realizes Te Fiti's missing. But what she has got is this giant stone lava monster. And she realizes that when Te Fiti's heart was taken away from her, she became this big, giant stone lava monster. Anyone feel like that sometimes? And so what she does is she places the heart back and restores Te Fiti from a heart of stone to a heart of flesh. And so we're going to watch this clip. I want you to focus on the words. Listen to what she says and let your heart be drawn to God's heart. Okay, we're going to give this a go. They have stolen the heart from inside you, but this does not define you. This is not who you are. I know who you are. I made you. I am making you. I will give you a new heart. I will remove your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. God crossed time to become a little tiny baby. To become so small and so fragile to find you. To love you. To give his life, his blood for you. To restore you, to redeem you, to make you whole. And Jesus' scars, the scars that he took on the cross, have not gone away. When Jesus is resurrected, in the Gospel of John, he is still carrying his scars, but they have become beautiful. And he encourages us, his disciples, to reach out and hold on to his scars. Because as the prophet Isaiah says, by his wounds we are healed. The God of ages is pouring out his life so that we may live. So what can we do? What response do we have? What can I give him, poor as I am? I can give him my heart. And for those of us that have been Christians a long time, you've got to keep doing it. Something stony still hanging around there that needs to be handed over to God. Because we don't come into this place to look like good Christians. And we don't come into this place to seem like we've got it all together. We bring our broken hearts to be soothed and to be mended by Jesus' heart. I'm going to invite anyone who's on our prayer team to come forward now as well. So we're going to pray and we're going to worship, and whatever it is, whatever pathway, whatever focus, whatever words are going to help you connect your heart to God's heart, let it be now. And if there's something that's just been stirring as I've been speaking, that's going on in here, why wait? Why wait? Who are you trying to impress? What are you embarrassed of looking like? This is church. This is where you beat your chest and say, God, have mercy on me. So if that's you, please come forward and ask someone else to pray for you. Someone else to have the words to bring your heart to God's heart. And if it's not prayer, let's sing. Jesus deserves our worship. He is so tender and kind and wonderful and beautiful. And he's poured out his life for us. So let's come and meet with him. Not for anything that he can do for us, but just because our hearts long for the heart of Jesus, who loves us. So please, if you want prayer, please come up.